Good morning. Another ordinary morning in Iowa City. A nice Indian summer December day. Up on Clinton Street, the girls are walking back and forth from the dormitory to the Pentecrest. And yet I understand that there are about 2 busloads of state cops spread here and there around Iowa City.
They're slowly coming up the stairs. The police are looking out their windows at them, ready to open the doors. Doors locked!
We went up the back way, and we were casually walking up the steps to the second barricade. We were confronted by 7 or 8 campus security and Iowa City police. And at that point, the Iowa City policeman screamed out in a state of panic, as he was. And I don't know why, because we were casually walking up the stairs. No further! Nobody go any further! You're all deputized! And I thought I was a policeman. Very quickly, I wasn't, because he took the mace can and squirted me in the eyes. Out of there, we went over to the library, where all good Iowa students go, and we spent a little time inside the library, talking to students, asking them to stop down now. All this time, you see, the police were rolling around, and somebody would drop by from somewhere, we didn't know where, and he'd say, "The police are going that way," and we would go this way. At this point, I was told by somebody that they'd been told to get the kid with the megaphone. You know, well, I thought of giving it to somebody. But there were no policemen around.
Okay, these are the people that were arrested and the specific charges they were given. Everyone who pleaded today pleaded not guilty. Karen Harvey was charged with disorderly conduct, resisting an officer. Fred McTaggart was charged with disorderly conduct. David Drum was charged with disorderly conduct. Bert Marion was charged with inciting a disturbance and later with resisting an officer. Paul Kleinberger was charged with conspiracy. Ross Peterson was charged with conspiracy. Barb Schmulowitz was charged with disorderly conduct. David Grant was charged with disorderly conduct.
You tell me that I've broken laws and that I'll pay for my crime. You say you'll put me in prison for a very, very long time. I'm awfully sorry, gracious sir, but that's what you'll have to do. For I cannot kill the innocent, no, not even for you.
Now, in regards to Dow and napalm. The United States is involved in napalm. We have American troops there. So long as the United States is sending men to war, it would be unthinkable that we would not supply the products, the materials that they need.
My country, right or wrong, is about as sensible as saying my mother, drunk or sober.
You get into it because there are positive things that really needed to be done then. A few of them have been done since, like, LBJ, he gone.
I did it in part because there had grown on the campus a certain sentiment to which I was forced to respond. And it was personally, in the deepest possible sense, solidarity with my own son, who years from now will face that decision, and I had better face it in my own timid way first. I mean, I think that's the reason I carried a sign.
People came wondering what was going to happen, wanting to do something, and here came a battery of speeches which simply said, Dow Chemical is here. So let's go talk to the Dow representative. And that was translated in everybody's mind into, run the gamut, to this is exciting, romantic, my boyfriend is doing it, I'm doing it with him, to somebody who had a very sincere commitment, like David did, to stopping the war in Vietnam and was expressing himself by wearing a cloak of death. To whatever each person felt was the thing, manifested itself in going into the building.
I had he was about a year and a half old at the time, a son, and when those cries from the babies went up, the burning babies, it just did something to me.
That was also the year of the flower people, love and happiness and even jocularity and fun, because if we were talking about something, we were talking about what America was losing. The possibility of self-confidence, the possibility of working to make America better instead of getting trapped in a thing like that Vietnam expedition, which is totally a product of paranoia and fear and overreaction.
Now we look at this film and we can tell that we didn't do anything as far as the war was concerned, but we did do something, I think, as far as ourselves are concerned.
I happen to think that we've done something that in the long run helps get the gap between popular misconception and popular frenzy and world reality back barely within the limits of national sanity.
Down the Marines were coming to dear old you, and I won't find you warm on the other side. I'm gonna choose for what I live and die. I'm here to place my body on the line.
It's a ritual, maybe. It's a ritual that hasn't been established very long, but it's a ritual, and this is the way the individual can achieve meaning.
The experience of being in that demonstration, of being alive at that hour, in a manner of speaking, coming alive at that hour, was a very great experience.
It sort of was a new church for a while.
The demonstrations now, they're a drag to me right now. I don't know, there's something about getting together with lots of people for a moral cause. I mean, a demonstration is sort of like going to Sunday school. You do it for 1 hour out of the whole week.
I don't think that violence and confrontation is going to take a society all the way from corruption to utopia, but for a while it worked.
On December 5th, down and naughty tribe came down with sacks and contracts of conscience survive. When he got to Iowa, had quite a job to do. It took 300 cops to get that fucker through. And I won't fight your war, I'm on the other side. I'm gonna choose for what I live and die. I'm here to place my body on the line. STS was accused of wanting to provoke a confrontation so that people could get their heads busted, so that people would be radicalized. Okay, now that's a position that two girls took when they sat down on the steps, wouldn't leave, and were carried away. They believed that SDS had this policy that people, they wanted to get head peoples busted, which is, a pretty bad thing.
But they also saw the connection between the university as an agent in a very complex society and the industrial element in the society, and all of a sudden you dramatize the whole vast interconnection and the way decisions and power is wielded, which is so frightening.
This military-industrial complex, Eisenhower's one great phrase, has infiltrated the university so far that something was bound to pop.
We are the key institution. The way higher education is financed, with the way research is financed, with the way graduate students are paid to come to the university, and with the whole change in curriculum toward producing a certain kind of student rapidly to supply the needs of the technological enterprise.
We're all shifted toward the USS Enterprise.
Let's sailing out of town, and I won't fight you war, I'm on the other side. I'm gonna go while I live and die. I've really
We raised the question about the scale. Say 200 people in a community of 20,000 students, if we're going to make a demonstration, it's like David and Goliath.
At the very largest, there were never more than about 700 or 800 people. But 700 or 800 people out of a campus of 17,000. This is no bandwagon. This is really no bandwagon.
Yes, but if those people who didn't respond then were to see that film now, they would respond immediately to the film with full awareness, because in the course of a year, the same thing has happened so many times that they now know the significance of the action.
But there are still people who blame the things which happened on SDS and the radical students who mounted the demonstration. How do you answer this argument that if you just shut up and go away, you dirty radicals, everything will return to normal? There are people who will go see that movie and who will not be moved.
Oh, disorderly conduct. Get them, cops.
We go there, we don't try. We support the man who says we have to.
We give them cows and hogs, we give them rice, we give them food, water, and what do? They turn around and slaughter our men.
Is napalm harmful to human beings?
No more than electricity, no more than water, or any other common
No.
And you're students for responsible patriotism?
He got it, Caps.
Thank you.
Sometimes when we're thinking about these demonstrations and these cops, we're thinking that we're living in Yoknapatawpha, the fascist society and stuff like that. But things aren't that bad in Iowa City. There's that touching picture in the film of somebody talking across this banner. There's this counter-demonstrator up there with this huge, long bed sheet with letters on it. He's practically hiding his face. It's like he's got it up like a yashmak, like one of those Arab women's veils. He's looking out. But he's suspicious, but he's listening. They were having conversation.
They're also recruiting for their other very fine products,
Right.
such as artificial hearts and whatnot.
And artificial limbs, I think they make. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you see any irony in that? In the fact that napalm, which destroys people's limbs, also makes artificial limbs?
This is good, I guess.
You do see the irony in that?
It is ironic.
Okay, thank you.
It's been getting worse every time. I say if it gets any worse next year, we may have people killed on this campus.
I think so.
It's stupid.
Yeah,
Why should somebody get killed here on the University of Iowa campus that wouldn't prove anything?
Right, when they can get killed in Vietnam instead.
I agree with you. I don't argue with you. I agree with you, but I want to know what you're going to do effectively and orderly and efficiently about it.
Build them schools, build them houses, send them rice, send them food.
Make sure that they're good Christians.
Yeah, we're trying. Oh, boy.
Gather round us, people, and join us in our song. We've got a movement going, why don't you come along? We've got a lot of work to do, why don't you lend a hand? If everybody does their share, we're gonna free our land.
It just felt good to be with these people, knowing that they were behind you and that they thought that you were doing the right thing and that they were right along there with you, ready to be arrested if necessary.
I see it on the film, and I see what a happy walk that was, and I hardly noticed that, because the cameramen were sort of going along with the crowd, singing and swinging.
Nobody knows who owns the cameras. We don't know whether they're friendly guys from the police. Nobody knows. Beware the number of tape recorders, and everything's being taped. Part of the problem is that we have informers in the group who've been blowing up any kind of idea that comes up, and apparently, the police are better aware of what we're doing than we are. They think we're highly organized.
The whole business of it was the difficulty of doing two things that were perhaps impossible to do together. One was to keep high-spirited, to keep acting as if this campus belonged to its students and its faculty members, and as if we wanted to make a statement about something, the rest of the campus, but they'd regard it with at least the same forbearance that they'd regard a panty raid or homecoming rally. At the same time, knowing that there was all this business of outside police probably being called in, and having this feeling of challenge and confrontation in a serious way.
The whole idea of confrontation politics, it makes my insides go 100 miles an hour. I don't like it. I don't like what happens afterwards. I don't like, being in the hospital, getting my head sewed up. I don't like being in jail. I don't like having to go to court, having to worry about any of these things. But at the same time, I like it and I want it. It's hard to explain. I want what I think might be the results of it.
I didn't have any real assurance that physical violence would get anyone anywhere. But I think when we look at the film afterward, having had this violence, we then see very dramatically the configurations which we may have been blind to before. I mean, we have a confrontation of authority which is visible. We literally see top-down authority marching down the hill, and we see people who don't have any symbols of authority resisting. And I think this is both frightening but healthy to observe, to realize that there are people who say it's not impossible to act, even in our own impotent ways. We will take action and we will thwart as much as we can this tremendous octopus of power.
You show the police for what their role really is. You show the public what their role really is, and you show what happens when you try to act rather than be acted upon.
As long as this country is involved in Vietnam, the Dow Chemical Company will fulfill what it regards as its responsibility to this national commitment of a democratic society. Certainly profit or loss do not enter into this judgment because napalm is completely and totally insignificant to the Dow Chemical Company economically. So I don't believe it is the policy of this government to use napalm against civilians without a military objective.
Terrified because it was just such a nightmarish day. And being chased down the hall and seeing one policeman come tearing after Jim Morrill and beating him and beating him and beating him. And then I just couldn't find Fred. And I looked for him for an hour while all these police were just marching around and we kept asking people. And they wouldn't tell me where he was.
This one guy comes staggering down the hall. He's tall, he's got a white sweater on, and they haven't brought him out of there yet. They haven't brought him out because he must be bleeding. The cop didn't stop. The cop kept beating him, and he beat him all the way. Then the guy says, can I get my glasses? And he staggered out into here, and he wasn't even running away. And then the cop suddenly grabbed his arm like this, pushed him down to the ground, and whacked at him with the billy club.
And after about an hour, I found out he was at the hospital all that time. And to go there and see him just laying there with his head still cut open, I just felt after the barn all day.
Dow, for its part, intends to continue pointing its efforts and utilizing its resources to help bring about a better tomorrow and one on which a lasting peace can be built. We believe this demands dedication and zeal and a real concern for mankind.
I have a feeling that whole day, our lives were governed by people who had planned in advance exactly what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, and what the outcome was going to be. And I don't mean us.
Who planned it?
The police.
The police are the ones that always get pointed at, you know, as the bad guy. And these fellows would much rather be home.
I don't think that's the case here. I think that the police are being used by the university to enforce the presence of Dow Chemical on campus.
And you've seen the faces. Those faces are frightening faces.
I really think that the policeman is an average person who really doesn't understand what's happening to him. He has been so sheltered by the mass media that we all cry about. He's been spoon-fed in his classes about law enforcement. And when he comes up against people who are trying yet another way, he can only react in the way that he's been taught. The policemen are human beings, like us.
What Mailer said in Armies of the Night probably goes through their mind. He sees it as a class situation, and I imagine it was between not just country folk, city folk, but in a way that's true between students who are privileged and in that sense urban as against country people who are unprivileged, a real class issue probably venting itself.
See, the Iowa City police still to me are like country cops.
I agree with
because
you.
when I walk down the streets of Harlem, where I was born and raised, you see, and I see the New York tactical police two abreast every 50 feet, man, that gives me chills. Because that's an occupying army. And the Iowa City police, you know, I can walk up to them and shake their hand and go have a cup of coffee, and it's like meeting my father on the police force.
But they still use mace and they still beat people.
Billy clubs, nightsticks, whatever you want to call them. They call them batons. It sounds better, you know.
I think it did something to the police, whether we brought them over to our side or not. When on the floor for probably the first time in my life, I was mad at somebody, and I was showing it. He's probably been mad all his life, and all of a sudden he felt a little bit shocked at what he'd done.
Oh, wow. I mean, I love my brother, but that's it.
No, I can't explain it because it's something deeper than that, but I think when you get into these sort of archetypal situations, a situation of violence, that there's a moment of truth. I can't understand the policeman at all. I mean, I haven't even seen his face. I don't understand anything, but I would suspect that something of the same sort took place in him.
Maybe he dug it.
Yeah, well, but if he did, it's in the same sense. Maybe it...
then he's free to do his thing, you know.
No, not to hit people, but I think there's some self-understanding involved.
I think it probably breaks down very simply into we're the goodies and they're the baddies.
You want to push me out? Why can't I bring in a sign that says peace on earth, goodwill towards men?
Are you being thrown out?
Yeah.
You are? Why are you being thrown out?
Because I have a sign with me.
I said the sign is out. Let's leave it out.
Come on, let's work you understand.
All right. Outside. Come on, outside. They're not letting anyone in. They're like the only people they're allowing in. I wrote somehow connected with down.
Get out! Out! You're animals!
When the cops get out.
The whole film is interesting to look at because you just couldn't see that happening this year. You know? It seems another different atmosphere this year. Wow, totally different.
Yes, I can see that, but there's still ROTC and there's still other things in which they could dismantle the university's relations to a lot of things, and they could perhaps bring their pressure to bear to change the inner spirit of the university. I don't mean destroy it, because I think that there is something to be said for continuity of institutions.
The institution, you know, just institution. Who needs it? You know, anarchy. Yay.
I have the right to go up there.
You people are back outside.
Outside. Come on. You're moving. Come on.
We will never have quite this kind of demonstration again. This is timid by comparison to what will have to come next.
There are many more people talking quietly now, this year, a revolutionary belief or ideology than there were last year.
These peace talks break down. There's no way of stopping it short of whatever the government of this country decides is the proper answer. I suspect it's all over for the left.
Well, you probably see a lot more sabotage and real violent things happening here, and a lot of, I really do, think that would happen. There's enough people around right now who are ready to move violently against the government that I think that might give them an excuse. Although I think that just brings great repressions, and that we'd all be really in a bad way.
People would start burning themselves here like they did in Czechoslovakia.
You've already done it.
Yeah, they've already done that. And there's nothing you can do, it seems. It's just nothing. I really don't know. Well, you tell me that we all must fight and that we all must believe. But tell me, where did you put your gun and when does your boat leave? Well, I'm awfully sorry, gracious sir, but I know my own mind. Well, I'm awfully sorry, gracious sir, but I'll have to stay behind. Well, I know it's good for business, but I know it's wrong for man. And that's why I must oppose you in every way I can. Well, I know you've got the guns and clubs to beat me to the ground. But I hope you know that even so, I'll always be around.